You are listening to the Becoming the Wealthy You podcast with Jermaine Foley. If you're a woman who makes good money in your career or business, but you're not building wealth like you want to, then you're in the right place. In this podcast, you'll learn how to stop overspending, break free from the cycle of debt, save lots of cash, and become the wealthy woman you were born to be. Let's dive in. Well, hello there. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're talking about why your why matters, okay? Because listen, we all have financial goals: paying off debt, saving, investing, becoming a millionaire one day, and those are great. But here's the truth. If your goal is only surface level, it will not sustain you when things get hard, because the journey is going to get hard. I promise you. There will be setbacks, there will be ups, there will be downs. There will be moments where you're just tired, where you want to quit and you feel like it's just taking forever. And if your why is just surface level, if it's really shallow, then you will slow down and you might even quit, okay? But when your why is strong, when your why is emotional, when you feel it in your body, you don't just keep going, you actually become someone different in the process. And who you become, that's why I call this podcast Becoming the Wealthy You, is someone you couldn't even imagine because you have this strong why pulling you forward. So I'll give you an example that is outside of money. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to coach a gentleman who wanted to quit chewing tobacco. At first, his reasons were fine, right? They were surface level. He was like, I don't like the way it makes my teeth look. I don't like the way my breath smells. And I know it's not good for my health. Those were all valid, but when he said it, it really didn't matter to him because he kept chewing tobacco, right? He knew these whys before we started working together. So I could tell that those reasons just weren't strong enough to carry him when the cravings hit. And for him, it was usually at night. Once everything was done, he loved to just chew tobacco, or when he was hanging out with his friends, it was something that he did. So we had to keep digging. Eventually, he said, you know what? I want to quit because I want to be around for my boys, right? I know the health concerns, so I want to be around for them. And then as he kept talking about his kids, he went even deeper. He was like, I know they see me doing this because I coach them. I'm always around them. I love hanging out with my boys. They love hanging out with me. I'm their idol. And because they see me doing this, especially as they grow older, they're probably going to want to do it themselves. And I don't want to leave that legacy for them of chewing tobacco. And that was his why. That right there was his strong why. Yes, he wanted to do it for his teeth, for his health, so that he could be around for years to witness his kids as adults and grandkids. But even more important to him was that he didn't want his children to grow up watching him chew tobacco and to think it's cool because their dad is doing it and then they start doing it too. That was his strong why. And I'm happy to share. I keep in contact with this gentleman, and it's been 3 years and he has not picked up or chewed a little ounce of tobacco, not one time. Right? Of course, he had that strong why accompanied with all of the life coaching tools that I offer my clients around how to handle urges, what to do when you are triggered. Because the thing with him was he had friends that did it. So how do you handle that when your friends are chewing and you want to be with them, but you don't want to chew? So we work through all of those things from the life coaching perspective with all the strategies, tools, and guidance I can give them there. But those only work when you also have an internal why that is very strong and that will pull you forward no matter what. Now, the same thing applies to your money. So wanting to get out of debt, wanting to save, wanting to invest, wanting to become a millionaire, those are all good goals. But the real the real fuel comes from knowing why you want those things. And I've shared my story with you on the podcast plenty of times. At first, my goal was to get out of debt. And I knew I needed a why because we had over $200,000 worth of debt, right? It was going to take us a while to get out. And so I knew I needed a why to hold on to. And for us, at first, it was just to send our kids to college debt free. And then I remembered when I went to buy my first house, the gentleman asked us if we had someone who could gift us $10,000. And I looked at him and like, who in the world would just give me $10,000, right? There was no one in my family that was in the position to be able to do that. But when I remembered that situation years later, I was like, oh, I want to do that for my kids. When it's time for them to buy a house, I want to hand them 10 grand, right? Because helping them to go through college debt free is amazing, right? That means that they get to start life at least at ground zero and not below ground zero because of all the student loan debt. So that's amazing. But what about helping them to be above ground zero, right? So when they have their first home, they're not scrimping and trying to scratch every dollar together to make it happen if they could be gifted $10,000. And then a few years later, I was working with an old manager that I had, and he told me that, you know what, my daughter was just born. I just went to my advisor. I opened up a 529 plan, plopped $15K in there, and I won't have to put another dime in there. And when she's 18, she'll have enough to go to college for 4 years debt free. And I was like, oh my God, that is genius. I wish I would have known about that. And the truth is, even if someone would have told me that when I first had my kids, I wouldn't have been in a mindset to be able to do something like that. But what it did was it inspired me to maybe do that for my grandkids. That would help my kids even more so, right? Because they could live life without worrying about saving for their kids' college. So that's helping them and then helping the next generation as well. And then the final thing that really just drives me is I took my kids on a Disney cruise back when they were probably like 7 and 9. Right now, they're 18 and 20. So this has been a while. And we were on an excursion, and there was this older woman. She probably was in her early 70s, late 60s. And she was just having the time of her life because she had brought her entire family, all her kids, their spouses, and her grandkids on a Disney cruise. She probably was a widow. It looked like she was. And she was enjoying every bit of it. And it reminded me of a Bible verse that says a good man or a good woman leaves an inheritance for her children's children. And an inheritance is something that you can give people while you're living, where you can actually experience the joy that they're experiencing. So you can enjoy the joy that they're experiencing. And I think that is amazing. So those are my whys. So that's why I keep going. I'm in the thick of it right now, sending my kids to college debt free. We were able to save a nice chunk, but we weren't able to save it all because we were, getting ourselves out of debt and building our own wealth. And so we're in a combination of cash flowing, right? And so this year, I have a senior in high school. So it's August 2025. I have a senior in high school and I have a junior in college. And so next year, I'm going to have 2 kids in college. But the cool thing is when my youngest goes, he has money already waiting for him set aside. And so we'll just be cash flowing my senior at that point. But that's the season of life that we're in. This is what we want to do. This is my why. I am so passionate about that. And it keeps me going. So what is your why? You really need to tap into it. And here's the thing. My why has evolved and yours will too. That's okay. And that's actually really a powerful thing. And here's something I really want to touch on. Not every client I work with has children. And so your why doesn't need to be anchored to children. I know I gave you mine was around my kids, and then the gentleman I worked with, his was around his children. But it doesn't matter if you have children or not. You have a why inside of you that you need to tap into. I have a client right now that I'm working with whose big goal is to get out of debt. But when we dig deeper, she found that her strong why really wasn't about the debt at all. And honestly, was the reason why she was getting out of debt, but maybe not as fast as she could have been going, because she really wasn't reminding herself about this why that she has. So her why is she wants to be work optional by the time she's 60. She loves her job. She wants to keep contributing to society, but she doesn't want to have to depend on that paycheck. She wanted to be optional. She wants to be able to work when she wants to work when she's 60. She wants the freedom to work part-time so that she can travel the world and maybe even do some mission work if that's something that lights her up in the moment. And so right now, Her situation is she's got a bunch of credit card debt. So she's paying about $1,000 towards her credit card debt right now. That includes her minimum payments and the extra that she's paying. And I told her that that was good, right? She's digging herself out of a hole. But being debt-free, once you're debt-free, you're still at ground zero. Once you're out, you're still just right there. You haven't really built anything. So yes, getting out of debt is good. Yes, getting out of debt is part of building wealth, but what you're really doing is digging yourself out of a hole. So that is not the end game. The end game is to then be building wealth, to build yourself a mountain. So digging out of a hole to ground zero and then build a mountain of money through investing. So once you're out of debt, it's still just ground zero. The real vision, her strong why, is to be using that same $1,000 that she's paying on debt to build her wealth, to build that mountain of wealth, to invest, to create wealth, to be free, to let her money go to work for her and compound and compound and compound and compound, where her interest makes interest. And again, it's the eighth wonder of the world. You cannot beat it. You cannot outsmart it. It's magical, but you can't take advantage of it if all your extra money is going towards debt, right? Yes, we got to get out of debt, especially the high interest debt. And then we want to do that, not in a hurried way, but we do want to have some pep in our step, right? So that we can get to the good stuff, so that we can get to investing. And so that is what I really helped her to anchor into, her why of being able to be work optional by the time she's 60. And the only way that's going to happen is if she starts really investing at a higher level. And that's not going to happen until she's out of debt, where she's not paying that high interest credit card debt. And that was the light that she needed under her feet to move a little quicker, to have a little bit more pep in her step, and to start building that mountain of wealth. And so once she was able to connect why getting out of debt was so important and connect that to her why of being able to live her dream of traveling the world and being work optional, everything changed for her. Everything changed. So let me give you a taste of what I walk my clients through. You've got to ask yourself, why do I want whatever it is? If you want 10K in savings, 20K in savings, if you want to retire a multimillionaire, if you want to get out of debt, whatever that first goal is, we all need to start somewhere. And for a lot of us, it is getting out of debt because that debt is sucking up our income. We're paying compounding interest to the credit card companies instead of building compounding interest for our wealth, for ourselves. So you've got to ask yourself, why do I want this goal? And then whatever your answer is, ask yourself why again and again and again, at least 3 more times, maybe more, until you get to an answer that you can feel in your body. So here's a quick example. The goal is I want to get out of debt. Why? Because I don't want to live paycheck to paycheck. Why? Because I want to have enough money to do things that I enjoy. Why? Because I want to spend quality time with my family without constantly worrying about money. That might be it for some of you. And some of you, we may need to dig a little deeper. So you want to check in with your body to see if that why makes you tingle a little bit. It gets you a little excited. Your why is something that should make you emotional. Okay? So once you feel that emotion, then boom, that's the one. And that's the real why. And that's the one that hits emotionally, not just logically, because we all know logically we should be getting out of debt, right? The math doesn't make sense. To be paying compounding interest to credit card companies, it doesn't make sense. But that logical reason doesn't really motivate us. Getting out of debt for the sake of getting out of debt, saving for the sake of saving, investing for the sake of investing, it's not going to keep you motivated. You need a strong reason why you want to do those things. So here's some homework if you choose to accept it. Take some time to dig into your why. Journal it. Say it out loud. And if it doesn't give you that little tingle feeling in your body, keep asking until it does. Because yes, your goals, they will get you started, right? You may have some motivation to get started with just having the goal, but your why, that is what's going to get you to the finish line. Because as you go along the journey of reaching your goals, there will be setbacks. There's going to be times where you want to quit. There's going to be times where you just want to give up. There's going to be times where you're like, this is just taking too long. But if you have a strong why, it will fuel you forward. And if you want help with this, if you want to really discover your strong why and create a money plan that actually sticks and have someone guiding you every step of the way to help you to not only set your goals, to figure out your why, to figure out the strategy, to help you overcome the twists and turns, the hard days, then I invite you to book a one-to-one money coaching consultation with me by simply going to jermainefoley.com/consult or visiting the show notes. Here's what I want you to know. If you've been thinking about working with me, if you've been thinking about it, that's what your brain wants you to do. It just wants you to think about it because it wants you to stay exactly where you are. So if you've been thinking about it, let's put those thoughts into action. Get to the root cause of why you want to work with someone on your money. Get to the root causes of why you want to get your money together, why you want to build wealth, why you want to retire a millionaire. Get to the real why so that you can start taking action and stop just thinking about it and to start doing something about it. And I would love, love, love to be your money coach, to be your guide, to help you to reach your financial goals. Because let me tell you something, I know that you can do it. And you do not have to figure it out on your own, especially if you've been trying to figure it out on your own, you feel frustrated. It's time to get some support, some guidance, some help. And I would love to invite you to book that consultation with me. Again, it's jermainefoley.com/consult. That's Jermaine with a G, Foley.com/consult. Or you can simply visit the show notes and sign up there. All right. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye. Hey, if money is the one area of life you just can't seem to figure out, even though you make good money, you're not alone. That's why you're invited to book a complimentary one-to-one money consultation with me so that we can figure out how to solve your biggest money challenges. To sign up, simply go to jermainefoley.com/consult or check out the show notes. Hope to meet you soon.